Hello, bonjour. My name is Gayle Forman. I'm the author of Le Coeur Filet and Seizure Rest, and I am here to answer some questions from French readers. So I'll just get started. Okay, let's see. How did you get the inspiration to write the novel If I Stay? Anaïs asks. Well, Anaïs, that is a sort of complicated and bit of a sad story. About 10 years ago, 9 years ago now, some friends of mine were killed in a car accident, very much like the accident that kills Mia's family. And they all died, but one of the members of the family, a little boy, he lived a little bit longer before he succumbed. And I always wondered, did he know that the rest of his family had died, and did he choose to go with them? And that question sort of haunted me for years until, out of the blue, 7 years later, this fictional 17-year-old girl, a cello player named Mia, popped into my head. And I knew she was going to sort of take me on this journey to answer that question, not necessarily as it pertained to the real family, but as it pertained to her. And that was the seed out of which grew If I Stay. Lena asked, do you have another job in parallel? I think Lena means, do I have another job in addition to writing novels? I come from a background of journalism, so I used to write a lot for magazines, and I still do that to some degree. But right now, I'm fortunate enough that I am pretty busy writing novels, and my other job that takes up a lot of my time is that I have two young daughters. One is 2, one is 5. So I really only work a couple of days a week now, and only half a day, and then the rest of the day is taken when they're not in school and daycare, taking care of them and cooking and running them around to all the different things that they have to do. So my other big job is being a mom. Let's see. Gayle, is there any moral in your stories, any messages, especially for Sisters Insanity? Asked Justine. Well, Justine, I guess I would say for Sisters Insanity, the moral of the story is that we all have hidden strengths in us that we don't really know that we have until we're kind of forced to rise to the occasion by some kind of adversity. All of those girls in Red Rock, I don't think they deserve to be there, but they all have some problems, and not only do they overcome them, but they kind of really find a sort of grounding and a maturity and a strength that they didn't know that they had, that they wouldn't have necessarily have had found if they'd been back home. And in a way, that's also sort of a moral of If I Stay. One of the things that I remember Mia thinking about Kim is sort of admiring Kim finding these pockets of strength in herself that she didn't know she existed. And of course, Mia has to find strength in herself that she never dreamed that she had. So moving right along, are you writing young adult novels to help teenagers? I don't think you actually encourage them to rebel against their parents, but while I was reading, it felt like you sided with them. Justine asks. Well, if you're talking about Le Coeur Filet, I think I was definitely siding with the teenagers. That story grew out of an article that I'd written. I used to be a journalist for Teen Magazine, and I did a piece about these behavior modification boot camps that are very similar to Red Rock, where Britt goes, and I was outraged by them. I couldn't believe that they still existed, and there's been all kinds of government investigations, and places have been shut down, and parents, I think most of the parents I talked to really thought that they were sending their kids somewhere good and therapeutic, and they'd never seen these places firsthand, and the places were abusive. So when it comes to that particular story, absolutely, I side with the teenagers. And I think from all those years of working for the Teen Magazine, I did a lot of stories like that where I saw teenagers kind of being victimized by the adult world and fighting back against it. And I always, my loyalties were most often with the teens. And maybe that's in part because I still feel so much like deep down I'm still a 16-year-old myself. If I Stay is different. Mia doesn't really have a lot to rebel against with her parents. There's not that same dynamic of rebelliousness and fiction and friction in that story. So, it's definitely not something that I feel needs to be in every story. It has to do with the characters and what they're up against in the story I'm telling. Okay, Ophelia asks, how do you choose a character's name? Ophelia, it's so different in every case. With Le Coeur-Filet, Brit's name just popped into my head as Brit, and then I had to find a reason why she was named that, so I said that her parents got pregnant with her while they were in England. With If I Stay, I was about 40 pages into the first draft and Mia still didn't have a name because they had never mentioned it in the book, and I realized I have to name this character. That's my cat making some noise over there. And so the book takes place in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, and I was thinking, and there was a lot of music going on, and I used to live in that part of the world, and so I was thinking about the Pacific Northwest and music, and it made me think about this band called the Gits, who when I was living there had been on the verge of getting really big, and then their lead singer, this really kind of cool punk rock, hardcore chick named Mia Zapata, had been murdered, and it was a mystery for about 10 years until they found the killer. And for some reason, that name stuck, and that's how I ended up naming Mia Mia. But it's a whole sort of mystery stew, and sometimes you have to change. So you have to change characters' names. You realize they're not working, or what have you. But you get pretty attached to names.